Hi, welcome to the Dr. Jimbo Love Show. I'm here with Seth Matthew, and we are here on the 18th of December sitting outside at the Brothers Bar and Grill at the Shops of Northfield.
Yeah, we're right under the heat lamps. It's pretty toasty.
Absolutely, and we have a TV right in front of us, which you can't see, but is just wonderful. We want to invite you to come on down and visit us today. We've got some different games on right now. There's a soccer game that's playing. Is Man U playing today? Or is it the lower leagues that I saw on earlier?
I don't know if Man U's back. I know they had some game cancellations due to COVID, so we'll have to wait and see. I know their last game was canceled due to COVID, but Arsenal might be playing today because I know one of our regulars is out at a soccer bar right now watching it that opens super early for these games.
Yep, exactly. And right now, Appalachian State is playing against Western Kentucky, and there's a lot of points on the board in the first half. It was 24-24 last time I looked. So that's some exciting football to get you warmed up for some of the other things. One of the games that happened last night, a lot of these bowl games now that you're seeing, you're going to see a lot of teams that you haven't had a chance to watch a lot. The Cure Bowl last night was a great example of two teams you may have not seen. You had Coastal Carolina against Northern Illinois, and boy, wasn't it was a great game, wasn't it?
Yeah, back and forth all game. All of a sudden it comes down to the end. Northern Illinois gets it within 10 yards, time's expiring, no timeouts, and they just couldn't. They came up a little short. It was a little bit closer than I expected because Coastal Carolina was a little bit more tested than Northern Illinois. But, this selection committee does a great job of, it doesn't matter the record, they always set up great matchups.
Yeah, it's cool. What happened was there was some spotting issues with the officials, and the officials went to spot the ball with 2 seconds left and did not let the quarterback know that the clock was going to start upon him placing the ball down. And the 2 seconds ran off the clock, and they didn't even get a snap off. And it's sad for a team like Northern Illinois to lose a game like that. Now, Northern Illinois does not back down from their schedule. They beat 5 bowl-eligible teams this year, and the 4 losses they had and then now a 5th loss, are all ranked teams. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of neat. Unfortunately, there was a controversy down the stretch, but at least there was a great warm-up to the bowl season.
Yeah, you hate to see a game end like that. I mean, this whole body of work to get to the bowl games, it's anywhere from I believe it's 12 games people play. Mm-hmm. And so it's all this body work leads you to this moment. And for it to finish like that, it's a little disappointing, but you know what? It was an exciting football game. And like you said, it's a great lead kickoff into everything.
Yep, so the final score was 47 Coastal Carolina to 41 Northern Illinois. The next game that starts today at about 10 p.m. is the Cricket Celebration Bowl. And I'm kidding around calling it the Ghetto Phone Bowl because I guess they're doing a promotion where you turn in your burner phone. This is mostly for the drug dealers and pimps and hoes out there. And they give you a Cricket phone. Yeah. I'm kidding, of course. But anyways, we are featuring 6-5 South Carolina State versus Jacksonville State, which is 11-1 this year.
Yeah, Deion Sanders' team. The big thing about them, win or lose, they're already winners of this bowl game. It was just announced that they got the #1 recruit at cornerback.
Oh, did they?
He went to go play for. He had offers from Georgia. He had offers from others. It's really cool to see a little school like this get some big recruits. His name is Travis Hunter. He's overall #1 in the 2022 draft class. So you got some big names heading here. It's going to be interesting to see what this team does because obviously with their conference, they do not play quality opponents. So they could be an undefeated like Cincy and not make it into the top 4. So this school really has to look. I don't know how far you make the schedule out, but they really got to look at getting some top 25 teams in there if you're going to be getting recruits like this. So maybe they can make some noise down the road. Absolutely. We may be talking 2 years down the road, Jackson State in the top 4. We just don't know. It's a stretch, but you never know with these guys.
It could be either that, or I'm not exactly what the coaching situation in Florida State is, but you can look for Deion Sanders to move to maybe a more larger conference or a more significant kind of situation. We'll have to wait and see. It'd be great if he stayed there. Now, his son transferred back from University of South Carolina to play for his dad and is doing quite well for him. On Saturday at 5 p.m. tonight, we have the LA Jimmy Kimmel Bowl. I was joking about it last week, calling it Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, but it's actually officially called the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl. Why is that? Do you know?
I don't know why.
Okay, so maybe Jimmy Kimmel is just promoting a bowl, or they're doing it through his show. Oregon State 7-5 versus Utah State 10-3. Utah State lost to Colorado State a couple weeks back, but they came back and won the Mountain West Championship. Again, with Utah State, you've got Bonner at quarterback, 36 TDs, 11 interceptions. Oregon State, watch for their running back, B.J. Baylor, and he had 1,259 yards this year.
Yeah, and so for people that do sports betting, or you pick who's going to win, if you look at the body of work, Utah State has not had a more difficult schedule than Oregon State. Oregon State comes from a tough conference, so records really don't matter anything. When you look at these bowl games, you got to say that it's a new game. It's 0-0 for a record, because that's all out the window. It's a one-game battle between these two teams, and they stack up really well against each other. Even though Utah State has a great quarterback and they have a better record, I'm taking Oregon State in this game.
Are you? I feel the same way. I think Oregon State plays in the Pac-12 conference. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a little bit tougher, and you've got a Pac-12 matchup versus the Mountain West. So let's see. People always talk about conferences, Power 5. You got a Power 5 versus one of the other ones out there. Heisman Trophy voting last weekend. And as most of us pretty much predicted, Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama, ended up winning the Heisman. It was the first time that Nick Saban, in his era, that he had a Heisman Trophy winner that was a quarterback. He's had 3 other people at Alabama that were Heisman Trophy winners. The interesting thing here was Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end for Michigan, finished second in the overall voting. And another thing is, I have to bring this up, as Will Anderson Jr., he's a linebacker from Alabama, he actually got more first-place votes than C.J. Stroud. And he is another defensive player, which I'm glad to start seeing some defensive people being represented in the Heisman voting.
Yeah, like I said last week, it really comes down to how do you value certain things. Quarterbacks have it easy, where it's touchdowns compared to interceptions, total yards, how you show up in big games. Where defense, you're not making it to the quarterback every snap. Your interceptions, you're not intercepting every single throw that's coming out. It's hard to value coverage. So it's, like I said, I thought Bryce Young had it. I just didn't know how to quantify what the Michigan defender actually had. So, I think they made the right choice. But again, it's nice seeing different positions up there. We haven't had a running back. Didn't really have a running back this year really take the helm.
Yep.
So it was all QBs and defense for the most part.
Yeah, and Kenny Pickett came in third. He's the quarterback from Pitt. He's the gentleman who says and swears that he did not attempt to fake a slide, although that fake a slide really changed the game. It was on the first possession, and he ended up scoring on a long play. 3 other defenders pulled up. We talked a little bit about this. What are your feelings on this, Steve?
Well, my whole thing is hey, it wasn't a rule yet. Now when this happens and this is called, Kenny Pickett can look back, regardless of what he does in pros, and says, I'm the reason for that rule.
It's the Kenny Pickett rule.
Yeah, it is the Kenny Pickett. We talk about the Tom Brady rules. We talk about all these other things. So, if there is room in the game to exploit, do it. I don't hold anything against him for it. I understand why he did what he did and got the touchdown. But, he was playing the game. And
he swears, though, Seth, and this was during the Heisman Trophy presentation thing, they did the interviews, that he really changed his mind midway through. Whether he did or didn't, it was a hell of a fake, and he ended up juking out 3 guys that would have tackled him probably on the 45-yard line. Instead, he jukes them, goes down the sideline, and scores 7-0. And they go on and win that ACC championship game. So that's the first time for Pitt to win an ACC championship since they've been in the conference. One of the bowls I like to always talk about is the Idaho, great, famous Idaho Potato Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
It's in Boise, Idaho. It's on the Smurf turf. And this year we have a local team, a relatively local team, Wyoming, that'll be playing against Kent State. What you need to look here is, Wyoming likes to run the ball. They like to control the clock. They rely on defense and field position. Okay, pretty traditional, old-style football. Now you've got Kent State, which they call flash fast offense. which basically is no huddle. What do you got for this?
Yeah, so Kent State offense is phenomenal this year. You're looking at a Dustin Crum, their quarterback. As soon as he throws for 50 yards this game, he threw for over 3,000 yards, which is great for a college quarterback. You also have, believe his name is Marquez Cooper, over 1,000-yard rusher. Now, it may not seem like a lot to some people because you look at the NFL and you see all this, but that's very significant for a college football team.
It is.
Now, with this matchup, though, you have Kent State. Again, it's not like the NFL where you get similar matchups and your strength of schedule is pretty 50-50 here. Kent State has a much weaker schedule. But at the end, Wyoming hasn't looked as explosive since the Josh Allen days. They are susceptible to a loss here. But I'm going to take defense in this one, and I'm going to say Wyoming barely hangs on, and they end up beating Kent State.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. Again, it's the different. It's in conferences. You know, Wyoming's in the Mountain West, and Wyoming. Let's be honest. They have. If you listen or if you read anything on Twitter and any of their fan blogs, Wyoming has underachieved all year long.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be really nice to see the boys up there in Laramie just come out and get a big win and really feel good and get some momentum going into next year.
Yeah, and Wyoming's going to travel well, especially when you get these states that don't really have pro teams. This is their pro. This is their Super Bowl. So fans are going to come out. They're going to get crazy. It's going to be noisy. Wyoming is going to have the fans on their side. Kent State, I'm sure they travel well, but I just don't think they have the diehard fans that Wyoming does. So I do play X factor into fan noise and fan support.
Yeah, and Kent State is in eastern Ohio. It's world famous for what happened back in the early 70s when four of the students were protesting and the National Guard shot them. So you hear about 4 dead in Ohio. That is Kent State. The next bowl that is on Thursday, it's a 5 p.m. bowl. It is called the Gasparilla Bowl. Now, I don't know what Gasparilla is. Is it what happens to you after you drink sarsaparilla? You gasp? I don't know. Or you add something to the sarsaparilla and you use Gasparilla? Anyways, we've got 2 teams that are separated by about 60 miles, Florida versus University of Central Florida out of Orlando. They're playing in Tampa. Florida, you know, had a really, really interesting season. They were up. They were a 10th, and they played against Alabama and lost by 2 points, 31-29. Lost a lot of games down the stretch and fired their coach. Dan Mullen is out. UCF has, you know, they're 8-4, but they lost their quarterback early in the season, and their running back Bauer could not stay healthy. They have a strong D and a great pass rush, but I don't see them being strong enough to be even Florida without Dan Mullen at the helm.
Yeah, I have this matchup as big brother versus little brother, and then I also have it as Florida's season labeled as what could have been. You look at all their tough losses they took. They also lost to LSU by a touchdown. They barely lost to Kentucky, who Kentucky, typically a basketball school, had a very solid football program this year. So, I mean, UCF did not get tested that much this year. Florida is used to these big games. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to handle UCF. UCF is not what they used to be. If you guys remember right, they did throw their own national championship.
Scott Frost and the boys.
Yeah, because they went undefeated and they didn't get in the top 4, which is unfortunate.
Yes,
but it all comes to strength schedule. And so I have Florida actually handling this game and actually winning by over 10 points. I think Florida just has better recruits. I think they have more athleticism. And I think they're going to overpower UCF at the end of the day.
I agree with you. And take a note, too. Again, this is a display of different conferences as well as just teams that face each other. And, you know, those people out there that always seem to get upset about the Power 5 conferences getting all of the TV time and all of the press, watch a Power 5 school. And this one, Florida's 6-6. They're very mediocre. And watch how they do against, you know, a non-power conference team.
Yeah, and I mean, the Power 5 is always susceptible to an upset every once in a while. Appalachian State back in the day upset Michigan. Michigan was a top 4 team. The little guys do get wins occasionally. Oklahoma lost to Boise State on a Statue of Liberty play. So it does happen. I just don't see any miracles happen this year. I think Florida got beat up enough this year, and that they're going to come out with something to prove. and they're just going to get ready for next season and kind of blow out UCF and kind of calm down the thing. Another thing we got to talk about with these types of schools is like Power 5 conference. You're going to see Cincinnati play the best of the best, and I just don't see that working out for them. But you know what? It needed to happen so we could stop having this conversation of why aren't the Boise States in the top 4 or Wyoming or UCF.
And I cannot agree more with you, Seth, on that, because I think we're going to see when Alabama matches up against Cincinnati, I think we're going to see a 4 or 5 touchdown difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's going to say, you know what, why waste such a big game on such a blowout, even though the team was undefeated?
Yeah.
So, and of course, this will all be solved once they expand from 4 to 6 to 8, or hopefully to 8 teams that are going to be in the Final Four. Give us a little bit more of a shot. So, if a team is on a roll, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and not to take away from these smaller schools and not in the Power 5. They throw some great seasons. Their coaches are amazing. They do very little with 3-4. They do a lot with 3 to 4 star recruits because they're not getting the 5-star usually, like Jackson State just got with Deion Sanders. They're typically making something out of nothing, and they're making great football. They still get some great players, but I mean, when you have an Alabama and you're getting a top 100 recruit in every position, it's just tough to overcome.
Well, and Alabama has had the top recruiting class in the nation 9 out of the last 11 years.
They just got beat out, though, for this year. Right now, leading the way, it's not over. Texas A&M.
Just
now,
Jimbo
maybe that loss, that win that Texas A&M got, maybe that put them over the edge.
Yep. Well, we know that Jimbo Fisher's down there working his tail off, and, the A&M is kind of a new addition to the SEC, so he's got a lot to prove, and maybe next year is going to be this breakout year where you can really come out of the West and do some great things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the hoop games. Now, unfortunately, the hoop games, there are almost 11 programs right now that have called off games. And again, it's sad to see this with COVID. These kids are young, they're strong. I don't see a whole lot of problems, but unfortunately, we live in an atmosphere where COVID is still a major problem. The problem is that when these games get canceled, they're not made up. You just don't have time. They're starting conference schedules now. You've got holiday tournaments and all this other stuff. It's really unfortunate. And we'll talk a little bit about Tulsa and Colorado State, which was canceled. But one game that is playing today, one of 2 that we're going to talk about, is Texas Tech, which is 8-1. They're ranked preseason. Well, it's not really preseason, but it's early season at 25, and they're playing against Gonzaga, which is 8-2 and ranked 5th. One thing you want to think about is their DraftKings doesn't even have a line on this game. Mm-hmm. Now you've got the number 25 team in the nation playing the number 5 team. Normally, you're going to find at least, what would you say, 5 points?
Yeah, you would see something like that. It really comes down to just them not valuing the newer teams in the top 25 and how much they favor Gonzaga this year. Gonzaga is a solid team. They have Chet Holmgren, this freshman that's only going to get better. He came out of the state of Minnesota.
Number 1 recruit in the nation.
Mm-hmm. He's huge. He's a freak. He can shoot. He's still learning the game, though, so they're still susceptible there. But they have a veteran in Jeff Tim. I was calling him Timmy, just like South Park. Or Drew Tim. He ends up, he's big down low. He's a great scorer, and that's just amazing to have.
Yes.
Now, this Texas Red Raider team, I don't understand why they don't have a line on it, because they have a very veteran team. Their forwards are all about seniors and juniors. Their guards are juniors. This is a very veteran team, and when you see this in college basketball, it's significant, because a lot of these teams, Duke is now one of them, Kentucky has been known for it forever, are one and done. You don't get that veteran coaching, the experience, and the gameplay of these big games in a lot of these players. And Texas Tech is ready to play. So I see this game actually being a close one. I still give it to Gonzaga by probably 5 points, but I just see that Texas Tech is going to hang in there with this team. Alabama just beat Gonzaga, and they were basically all juniors and seniors. So you're getting a lot of these 4-year teams becoming relevant now, because there's not a lot of them left.
Right, and there's a lot to be said about experience. When you have juniors and seniors matching up against freshmen, I don't care if they're the best freshmen in the country coming out of high school. College basketball it's a journey. Trust me, I played 4 years, and when I was a junior and a senior, and I got a chance to guard a freshman, I didn't care if he was an All-American or a reject from a Division I school. I was excited because I knew that mentally I could dominate them. Mm-hmm. One thing we want to remember a little bit about Texas Tech is they're one of the top defensive teams in the country. So you're going to see the Gonzaga really. It's going to be how well they can enter the ball to their bigs. Mm-hmm. And if they can't, then you're going to watch and you're going to see Texas Tech, I think, beat them. I'm going to pick Texas Tech in this game. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to say about that one?
That one basically is all about Gonzaga's flow play. Their guards are really good at distributing it to their bigs. The issue with Gonzaga is their guards are very inconsistent. When Gonzaga has struggled, it's because their guards are shooting 3 of 10 from the field. They're really not hitting their shots. When they're blowing teams out, their guards are on point. They have no issues with the forwards, though. The forwards are always going to play. You're getting Chet Holmgren probably averaging 13, 14 points. Then you got Drew Timm. He's putting up at least almost 20 points a game.
Oh, he's tough. And you guys remember him down the stretch in the NCAA finals last year and the tournament. He just had a great tournament. Mm-hmm. We're going to skip Tulsa versus Colorado State, but Seth's got some stuff about Colorado State, a team that's just basically an hour and 15 minutes up north from us. They're ranked 23rd right now. Tell us a little bit of what you got for Colorado State.
Yeah, so Colorado State really gets hurt by this game. Not significantly with Tulsa because they probably would have beat them anyways, but the big thing is their next game got canceled too, which is against a ranked Alabama opponent, which is their only ranked opponent that they have all year. Colorado State is very good guards. They have 2 really good juniors that are averaging about 15 points per game. They're just a really rounded team. But the big issue, without having a ranked opponent, they're at best, I can only rank, even if they were to go undefeated this year, maybe a 7th seed, which is crazy because you're going to have the 2-3 losses Dukes, you're going to have the 2-3 losses Gonzagas, they're going to get 1 seed. You're going to have probably less significant teams of maybe they're going to have 8 losses, and they're going to probably outrank you in March Madness just due to quality of schedule. So it's unfortunate that Colorado State got dealt this card because they really could use that Alabama game for the selection committee when it comes to ranking in March Madness.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing about college basketball is it is a long season, and there's going to be plenty of opportunities. And hopefully, even though they're not playing ranked teams, we're going to see a good body of work, which the committee will get them in. Because, once you're in, hey, anything happens.
Yeah.
You can be the 68 team, and we've seen a couple of those play-in teams make it to the Final 8.
Yeah, look at Loyola Chicago's really made a name for themselves lately. Davidson back in the day had a really solid crew. So, college basketball, I feel, especially because it gets crazy in March Madness. Last year was just nuts where every team that was ranked and favored was getting upset left and right. It really cost me a lot of money in college basketball betting. But that is the great thing because it's not as, I wouldn't say lopsided as football, because the big thing is with college basketball, we've seen it over and over and over again. Even though they don't match up, they may not play ranked opponents, they play different styles. Yep. And sometimes the best team doesn't match up well, and it's too late for them to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, one thing you have to remember, too, is you're talking about 22 starters in a college football game, where in basketball you have 5 starters, and you're probably playing maybe 2 or 3 people off the bench. So you really only have to put together a smaller core group to compete on a national level. So smaller schools and non-traditional schools have opportunities, especially if they have good guard play and defense in the tournament. We can go all the way back to 1983 with NC State. NC State was 14-10 entering the NCAA tournament, and back then there was only 32 teams. So when they played, they ended up winning it. And it was one of the most storied NCAA tournaments in recent history. Not really so recently history, because Seth, you weren't even alive yet, were you?
Nope, wasn't alive yet.
All right, we have UNC, and again, UNC, University of North Carolina versus Kentucky. Kentucky's ranked 21st. What's odd is that you're seeing a North Carolina team that's not ranked in the preseason. Now they've gone through a coaching change. Roy Williams has retired, and Hubert Davis has stepped in. What do you have for this game? What do you think you see happening here between these two teams?
Yeah, so the big thing here is UNC is definitely underranked when it comes to this. This is a weird year. ACC, typically you see 4, 5, 6 teams in the top 25. They have one, and it's just Duke, sitting at number 2. UNC has beaten a ranked team in Michigan, who was sitting at like the 24th when it happened, but they've also had 2 other games against ranked opponents that they've dropped them both. One being Tennessee and I believe Purdue early on in the year. But UNC has a new coach, so they're all gelling right now. They're only going to get better as the year goes on. Kentucky is really hanging their hat on their defense. When they're getting 7 to 8 steals on all their wins. So UNC really has to take care of the ball. And they also, Kentucky has a big man named Oscar, I'm going to butcher your name, Tshibwe, and he's averaging a double-double a game. And that is just amazing for anyone on any college basketball team.
Absolutely. That's a great thing. One thing I do want to bring up before we walk into the pro end of our broadcast is last night's game between James Madison and North Dakota State. Again, this is Division I AA is what we used to call it back in the day. But it's the Final Four, and you've got San Diego State versus Montana State, which plays today. The winner of that game will face North Dakota State. Great game last night, 20-14. James Madison has been a traditional power in the Division I AA, and I'm going to call him that because I know they call him something differently. But I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time on that campus. That was halfway point between New York and South Carolina when I was driving down to graduate school. Harrisonburg, Virginia is just a wonderful place. North Dakota State, isn't that where Carson Wentz went?
Not only just him, also Trey Lance.
Okay.
So they produced 2 college football NFL, or they went from college, not even playing in the Power 5 conferences, to go pro. To put that in perspective, Oklahoma has 3, Alabama only has 2 right now. Obviously, with Bryce Young, who has to come back next year, it looks like they might have 3 in the NFL. So they're producing NFL players at the same rate as the top of the top college football.
And they were playing that game last night. I had a chance to watch the last half of it in the Thunderdome in Fargo, and the decibel levels were up over 100. So it was like going to a rock concert, basically. And I think James Madison had a little trouble with the volume. You know, these teams do not play in big stadiums. They certainly don't play in a closed stadium like the one in Fargo. Have you ever been there?
I haven't been to that one. I've gone to their hockey stadium, but I have not been to their football stadium.
I wondered if you had played there or something, because I really wondered how loud it is. But it's got to be, I mean, they talk about it being one of the loudest arenas in absolutely the world.
Yeah, and you're looking at North Dakota State. Their only loss is to South Dakota State. Mm-hmm. So they pretty much almost had an unblemished record. And that has not changed over the last, since I can remember, maybe 8 years. North Dakota State has been a max a one-loss team.
Yep.
So they are the powerhouse.
Yep. It's been. It really has been. It's been South Dakota State. It's been James Madison through the past couple of years. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Don't be afraid to watch some of these lower-end things because you're still seeing football played at a great and very high level.
Yeah, and one thing it comes out to when you see in bowl games, too, they tried it in the Coastal Carolina game in Northern Illinois. Trick plays are called frequently, and they are fun to watch. It's like backyard football. Now, it did not work out for Northern Illinois. Right. They tried to do a play that you would do in backyard football where you basically ask the coach what the play is, and you try to snap to get the team off. They got crushed. It didn't go anywhere, but they tried it.
They snapped it to the running back.
Yeah, and he just got stuffed. Nobody fell for it.
Exactly. All right, well, let's shift gears here a little bit and talk a little bit about the NFL. Last week we had 6 games that we featured. The first one was the Ravens versus the Chiefs. Really not a lot to say here. It was 48. The Chiefs won 48-9. Mm-hmm. Any comments on that game? It was just a blowout.
The Raiders are falling apart like they normally do. Now this year I'll actually give them a break. They lost a top wide receiver. They lost their coach. They pretty much are a team that seems hopeless at this point. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to put anything together. The slightest injury to any player really is just very detrimental to this team. So I think the Raiders are done. But the Chiefs are looking in strides.
They really are.
Everyone was talking crap about them at the beginning of the season, saying, oh, they're in last place in the division. Now where are they? Number 1. They go into the playoffs easy, and you know what? We'll see what the Chiefs do this year.
Absolutely. They're fighting hard for that number 1 seed and home field advantage. The next game, we talked a little bit about the Browns versus the Ravens. The Ravens are on a little bit of a skid here. They've lost 2 straight. They lost this game, another real close one, 24-22. The Browns pulled it out. What were your impressions of Baker Mayfield and all the injuries the Browns have felt?
So the Browns, they're not doing well this year. They're underperforming. They may have pulled out this win, but there's an asterisk next to this win. Lamar Jackson got injured in the first quarter. I don't think it's the same type of game if he can play. They're doing the best they can, but they have a tough schedule ahead. So it's going to be very interesting, especially with all the COVID cases they have right now, of how they finish out the year. Now the Ravens, pretty much in a playoff spot. They should be fine. Their division is kind of falling off. You have Pittsburgh kind of struggling a lot.
Big time, yeah.
Basically, if they lose this week, they're out.
Yep.
Cincinnati, they started as a hot team. They're really dying off. So, I mean, the Ravens are fine for playoffs. They just need to get healthy, and they should be okay. One loss isn't going to kill them.
No, well, they were 8-4. Now they're 8-6, which is it's a big difference. But I agree with Seth on that. Bills versus the Bucks. Again, very close game, 33-27. The Bucks pulled it out. Bills, I thought they were the real deal at the beginning of the season. Now, granted, they lost to my Steelers right off the bat, but then they turned around and won 3 straight. I don't know what's going on with the Bills.
Yeah, the biggest issue with the Bills right now is they can't find the explosive offense that they had last year. They're really struggling at this point, especially maybe there's some mental games going after that loss to the Patriots after the Patriots only threw the ball 3 times. So, I mean, they need to calm down. They need to figure it out. They have the tools and weapons to be successful. They went from a top run defense to, I believe I checked my fantasy football app, that now they're ranked at 18th. And that happened over the last 3 or 4 weeks here. So their defense needs to get their head on straight. Stephon Diggs really needs to start making some plays for him. And Josh Allen, this is your team.
Yeah.
You got to start making plays.
I agree. Cincinnati played against the 49ers, and the 49ers pulled out a field goal victory, 26-23. Made me very happy. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh right now are fighting for playoff spot, and 49ers helped me out greatly. What were your impressions on that game?
This whole thing has to do with Jamar Chase here. Beginning of the season looks hands down rookie of the year. He's getting over 100 yards, multiple touchdowns a game. He seems unstoppable, but he's fallen off. The last 4 weeks, he's gotten 1 touchdown in those 4 weeks, but he's not breaking the 100 yards anymore. They're not explosive on offense. And the 49ers, I can't wrap my head on how good they are because they started off the season not the greatest, and George Kittle was hurt, and he's a big part of that offense. Since he's come back, he is tied for most catches for a tight end. He has over 120 more yards than any tight end in that 6-week span that he's been back. And the 49ers offense is really coming alive at the right time here.
Yeah, very good, very good. The next game, of course, was the Packers versus the Bears. Really not a whole lot going on here. 45-30, Packers win. Just pretty much what we expected, right?
Yeah, except for one thing. The Bears started in the lead, which shocked me. But Aaron Rodgers proved that he still owns the Bears, and he took care of business, came back, put them out of their misery. Bears are pretty much just waiting till the end of the season to fire their coach, so hopefully, the Bears hopefully don't play anymore because they play my Vikings twice.
And then we have the Rams and the Cardinals, which was really, slated as a great game. It ended up being a really, really well-played game. 30-23, Rams pull it out. Again, 2 very, very high-end seeds for the NFC. What were your impressions of that game?
The Cardinals were dealt another devastating blow this week. They've really pulled out a lot of wins with injuries and stuff, but DeAndre Hopkins has just come back. He sounds like he's hanging up for the rest of the season. He might be back by playoffs, but losing a top receiver like that, it's going to be rough for them. But overall, this Cardinals team is solid. Their defense is good. They still have Kirk. They still have Zach Ertz, which they made a trade for earlier this year. Mm-hmm. They'll be fine, but DeAndre Hopkins has to come back if this Cardinal team is going to make it deep into playoffs. Now, the Rams, on the flip side, I had them early picked to win the Super Bowl.
Yes, you did.
They've made some stumbles across the way, but they're just a great team, and I think Cooper Kupp is having the season of his life, and this Rams team is going to be deadly. I really want to see them match up against the Bucks or the Green Bay again, and just see how this game plays out, because the Rams are the real deal. I don't care what the record says, if they have 8 or 7 wins, whatever they're at right now. I think that they're the real deal, and they're going to make a run in playoffs.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, one thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Chiefs-Chargers game. It was such a good game that was played on Thursday night. The Chiefs ended up pulling out a really nice overtime victory, 34-28. A lot of people were talking about this game, Seth, as being one of the best games that has happened all season. Were you able to see any of it?
Yeah, I was actually watching it while I was at Pool League this week. But watching that game, I mean, it just shows that Kansas City's back. Now, the Chargers, we all thought the way the season started, that it was going to be them and the Bengals, or that they were going to possibly take this division, and it was going to be a new team on top, just like we thought the Bengals might take their division. But the Chargers have been inconsistent on play. The Chiefs, very consistent. Crappy at the beginning, great now. They're clicking at the right time. It looks like the Chiefs are the real deal.
Yeah, I agree with you. One other thing that we want to bring up is what we feel maybe, and Seth definitely will get more in detail about this, but the unfair practices with some of this COVID. 3 games were rescheduled in the NFL. Do you want to comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is just the most garbage favoritism I've seen. It happened last year with the Broncos. The Broncos were missing a big portion of their roster, were forced to play. Kansas City, a couple weeks later, missing some players. Well, they didn't want to hurt the Chiefs, so they rescheduled that game but didn't do it for the Broncos. Same thing is happening here. Detroit Lions, I don't care what their record is, they shouldn't have had to play the Broncos, missing 20% of their roster, which is a huge significant. They got blown out, but they played. Now we're looking at rescheduling the Browns, we're rescheduling the Eagles, we're rescheduling Washington, but we didn't do it for the Lions.
No.
I just ask that the NFL is consistent with their decisions. This is where the players are griping about there's 134 COVID rules and nobody knows any of them.
Exactly.
And you got to be consistent when you do this, because at the end of the day, I don't care if they only had 1 win. They still have fans, and they deserve the right to have their best team on the field to try to win.
Yep, I agree. All right, so we want to have you come down to Brothers. We're going to take a short break here, but Brothers, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Brothers, and I'm going to let Seth tell you a little bit about this, and then hit the stop.
Yeah, I got you. So here at Brothers, we have, I believe we have one more UFC coming up here, unless it's at the new year. We have some great games coming up for the bowl games. A lot of them are happening right after Christmas. Minnesota's coming up against West Virginia. We will have all bowl games on. We'll have all the NFL games on. But we're basically right now hosting all the holiday parties. You can see a little bit of a wreath here. The mall is decorated, so you guys don't really have to decorate. We've decorated our whole space, so it is very Christmas themed. So you guys can come on down, enjoy a staff party, and join a family get-together. If you don't want to host everyone at your house, we'll take care of the cleanup and we'll make your food. So come on down, come check us out, and come watch a game with us.